Welcome. Get ready for another episode of QCTV to inspire and empower. Our program starts shortly. I want to invite you to click the subscribe button and then join us for our after party today with my guest, Steve Nobel. QCTV begins in a moment. Here we go. Welcome to another Quantum Conversation, brought to you by acoustichealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. Welcome, everyone. This is a quantum conversation with Steve Nobel, who is a spiritual teacher showing us beautiful inspiration on how we can really live in this present moment, transcend all fear, and be a beautiful being of light on this planet. Let's welcome Steve Nobel back to Quantum Conversations. Steve, hello. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you for having me again. It's been a few months, isn't it? I think last year.
Yes, last year. And we actually met in 2016 when you had posted something and it was just inspirational, comforting words. And that, my friend, makes you a new earth leader, because now it is time for us to, as we transcend the fear, which that fear program and the divide and conquer program feels like it is 555% on high. And
Yeah.
so now it's time to go within so deeply, to hear that voice so deeply that we know the answers that we know within ourselves, and we have that guidance. So looking out in the world, tell us, it's could be quite hectic. Give us your update right now on how you see things, because this shift is continuing and the awakening is continuing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I did actually write a post on the I call it the Global Pandemonium 2020, and this was just my research and just my kind of revelations. And with that, I thought with the global crisis, I do think that um, the whole ascension process is going to bring some global crisis, because the world is just continuing doing what it's doing, and sometimes it needs a bit of a shake up. So this is one of those things. The ascension process itself is essentially a conflict between two paradigms and two ways of seeing and moving through the world. The old paradigm, of course, is still very strong. People are still doing what they're doing, trashing the planet, treating it like how they shouldn't be treating it. And there's, in the West, we've got all the democracies doing what they're doing with kind of manipulation and deceit and persuasion. And in other countries, more tyrannical, they're more arm bending. So these two forces are clashing, and that's part of the shift at the moment. But one of the other factors, I think, was just creating this pandemic is something you could think of as global guilt or collective guilt concerning the way we're treating the planet. And it's really people in the developed world, whose lifestyle is completely out of balance with the ascension process and actually Gaia herself, because the planet can't be treated, like a landfill. The oceans can't be kind of a dumpster. And, there's dreadful ways we farm, and there's forests and Amazon being cut down and species getting extinct. So that's a big factor, collective guilt. Even if we're just kind of busy doing what we're doing, paying the mortgage, at some level we know the planet is being damaged, and that creates a kind of collective guilt at the unconscious collective level. The third factor is billions of people on the planet feel incredibly stuck, and at the bottom of the feeding chain, and there's a great sense of stuckness and anger, and that anger actually can invite collective events to kind of break through. So when you've got a few billion people, or a couple of billion people who are really struggling, are really angry, who are absolutely frustrated, got no way of actually changing something, then this can be invoked from the collective can invoke it. And so we've had disasters such as war, for example. In England, we had, after World War I, the rigid class system started breaking down. So actually this huge calamity actually had a beneficial effect at a social level. And after World War II, a lot of gender roles began to break down. We had the Women's Land Army in Britain, so that all broke down. Another factor I think about this pandemic, this one's a bit controversial, but people can research, is that the introduction of 5G cellular technology in parts of the globe is actually, if you have a look at, I recommend people have a look at this issue, that actually that is linked in some way to it as well. And the fifth factor, which is really not a cause, which is really the carrier, is this huge 550% fear thing that you talked about, Lauren, that's ramping up at the moment. So I think they're the factors which are really calling into play this kind of thing, because as I probably shared and other teachers have shared, other people have shared, that it's common knowledge amongst the New Age community that we create our reality. It's been spoken about since the 60s. And most people think of it as a kind of individual level. I create my reality. I'm creating my friends, my opportunities, my possibility, the challenges. But of course, the collective creates at a big level. If you've got millions of people or billions of people focusing on something, that has an impact on the world around us. So these kind of events, of course, are not something that one individual calls up. But if you've got a whole group of people calling stuff up, then and the world is shifting. We've got storms and we've got fires, we've got all kinds of things. Gaia herself is rebelling against and shaking up things, but also the collective. If it just, I've had a few conversations with people in the 3D world recently, and I just think, oh my God, that the energy that one or two people are putting out. Imagine millions of people putting out that energy. What is that doing? We're moving through that. Obviously, we don't have to be touched by it, but that is part of the field we're moving through and having to navigate, really. That collective. And I've met a number of people who are really struggling at the moment because, the economy's winding down. I've spoken to a few people. So people in the 3D matrix are really worrying about the effects of this pandemic. It's kind of ramping up their anxieties and fears. And of course, it will eventually produce some changes. We don't know exactly what those changes will be at the moment. But so whatever the source of the pandemic, whether it is people eating bat soup or whether it is something more of a darker nature, the effect will be, I think there'll be some positive social effects. It's not a very elegant way of creating positive global social effects, but growth is a slap and a hug. And if we get the hug, we can have the hug. But if we don't get the hug, or if we don't listen to the whispers, we get the shouts or the slap. And the world is getting a few slaps at the moment because as the world shifts, it can't carry on doing the same old things. It's just not going to be allowed, actually.
Yes, it's not going to be allowed. And so this is the shift. And so there's questions coming in on this that we'll get to. It really is, it just feels like the past life as well, that like there is fear that is within and it's a collective. It also feels like that's on the collective. So that we're, you said it was this global guilt about how we're treating the planet and doing
Global guilt and global
yeah,
anger, yeah.
and doing things the same way and all of it. So um, as we are here, there is a question. There's a question um, coming in spiritually. Spiritually, then, what can we do to help contain the coronavirus?
What can we do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at this most practical, basic level, so I'm dropping my pen here. So I wrote a post, and at a very practical level, there's a guy called patrickholford.com. He's written a great blog on how I think it's vitamin C, zinc, and black elderberry extract are very useful for dealing. So if anybody's got something, that just blasting the body with that is a very good way of actually helping our immune system.
Mm-hmm.
And I can send the link in the chat box if you like.
I've heard vitamin C. There's lots of that, but liposomal.
Yeah.
Liposomal, am I saying that right? Liposomal. Liposomal vitamin C, it's like 1,200 milligrams in one tablet, or capsule.
Yeah. So I think I've got 1,000 milligrams in what I've got, and I hear that I think, you know, a couple of thousand is okay. Someone said to me that actually some people can take 6,000. And a friend of mine who's in Bali said, actually, if you do have a treatment there, they actually give you 20,000 milligrams in a shot. So I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't know, but there's a lot of advice around. So check out the kind of advice. There's also that
Yes.
thing of thieves oil, you know, the thieves
Yeah.
oil, which
Yes.
in the bubonic plague, apparently the story goes, some thieves survived it, and this judge, when they were caught, said, well, I'll give you a lenient sentence if you let me know how you did it. And they created this thieves oil. So again, if people Google thieves oil, they can find it. The
And
5G thing is a
mhm.
problem, and so that's, I mean, I'm going to do a meditation transmission to neutralize that as far as possible. But I think what people can do energetically is connecting with the 5D grid of the earth, is probably, you know, grounding into the grid of earth and bringing that up as a shield around them. On my YouTube channel, there's a few shielding meditations, but I'm going to do one specifically to address all those issues. And but I haven't done that yet, but that will happen soon.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, that's very interesting to think about the fully anchoring onto 5D. This is why we say hold our vision of new earth, no matter what. And
Yeah,
so we have a vision of oceans that are clean, innovations coming out, stay there. You mentioned that we may see some things in society get better too. So again, as we hold vision of new earth, and you see new systems come about, whether it's online education or businesses that are allowing their employees. There is a whole new world because of our technology today. There's a whole new way that people can do business and do business from home while
yeah,
still being employed. So I think that's going to be something really promising for the world as well. We know that so many people, well, I don't want to say so many people, but I hear from people who actually love working from home. And people are more productive when they can work from home. And so
yeah,
this leads us into our topic about the new 5D miracle flow ethic, because a personal integrity comes about. All right, a personal integrity of us each showing up, knowing our skills and what we have to offer the world, and we show up in a way that maybe it's a 1099 collaboration where instead of being an employee, then we're collaborating with people in that way. So there's new jobs and new collaboration. Some
yeah,
people still need to go in and get a paycheck, and they like that. So that's according to their personality type.
yeah,
So when we're talking about this topic today, embracing the new 5D miracle flow ethic, that is the new earth flow. So before we get there, let's talk about another aspect of the spiritual aspect that we can bring this world virus. And I think it's this fear within us. So, can you share first transcending the fear? We really do have to take a look at it, because I would be willing to say that so many of us are empathic and that we are feeling the collective.
yeah.
And so, how do
That's a
we
big problem.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
every star seed, I don't know if I need to really explain star seeds. I guess most people know the term now. Star seeds are basically a bit different from people who've been trapped in the reincarnational cycle on the earth. And one of the signs of being a star seed is extreme sensitivity, and that sensitivity can include absorbing energies. And so when the collective, and at the moment you've got millions of people beaming out fear,
Mm.
and star seeds will feel it, and they may not even know they're feeling it until they're aware of, do you know that the collective is sending waves of fear at the moment, and you're probably absorbing it. So the awareness at one level is good. And then another level would be, well, how do I get rid of it? And so
Mhm.
energy which is absorbed into the body is absorbed into the cells, the bones, the blood, the organs and systems. So there are meditations where even at the most basic one, a waterfall of light type of thing, they're the most basic kind of meditations, where you imagine standing under a waterfall and releasing anything stuck in your body. I mean, all the meditations on my channel usually start off with this basic way of working with energy, which is inviting energy in the body on the in-breath, because we are connected to the universe. So we're connected to the stars, the sun, and the ascending grid of the earth itself, bringing in energy, and on the out-breath, releasing energy that doesn't serve us. And so intention, and the job is done by our unconscious mind. So the unconscious mind keeps the heart going and the eyes expand, in the light, and keeping our body humidity going and all that. And also storing fat here and there. The body, the unconscious mind knows, okay, we have some foreign energies here and we can release it. And so we ask the unconscious mind, please release these lower energies. And lower energies, meaning the angers, the fears, the anxieties of the collective, and allow more of my own higher light in my body. So we have to get the unconscious mind on board. At the beginning, it goes, what? And eventually we train it to go, okay, we're breathing in light, we're releasing the lower, and eventually it does it. It needs to learn by repetition. So any major event, and this one, of course, is touching the whole Western world, well, many countries. And
I think it's every human, isn't it?
Yeah, well, some countries like Italy shut down.
An awareness that touches every heart, maybe.
Yeah, I
If
think
they're watching the media.
Some countries are more in fear at the moment, so I guess America or Britain, the whole craziness in Britain is toilet rolls are being, I mean, why I don't know why this panic buying of toilet rolls. It's really crazy.
They don't have bidets yet? No, I'm just kidding. Okay.
No, it's very strange. I mean, you think people would buy pasta or something to stock up, but it's all the toilet rolls for some reason. So the fear, I mean, Italy's shutting down. Some countries are less affected. England's less affected. I'm not quite sure how badly America's affected, but some areas are. But the fear around the global economy slowing down, and about, I think in the collective unconscious as well is the memories of things like the bubonic plague and the Spanish flu, where millions of people died. And so there is this collective fear, and they may not even know why they're afraid.
And so we were talking about this just today. Could this be past lives? People have been having dreams that they died in the plague. And this could be part of the fear as well, right? This is like, it feels like it's a group, it's a giant collective clearing.
Yeah. Well, that energy will be in other lifetimes, and also be in the ancestral lines. So if we've got ancestral lines that go back into infinity, you could say back to, thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, then we've passed through different times of plague. Plagues have arisen in history at different times. So the Black Death is the most scariest for Europeans, I guess. That was in the 1400s, I think. So, but the ancestral lines, and also other lifetimes we've had. So there's these two streams coming in that we have to learn to neutralize. And again, on my YouTube channel, there's a bloodline meditation process which helps clear the mother line, father line of general energies. So the more we're aware, because when we start waking up, we're not really appreciating all these streams of energy that we're immersed in the kind of collective field. We've got our own personal reality stuff going on in our field. We've got other lifetimes which start coming online when we wake up. The more we wake up along the path, the more these come online, the good ones, the lovely ones, and the challenging ones. And so where they may be dormant for a while, you might have so I'm pretty sure I've been killed a few times for speaking my truth. And I remember at least once being burned alive, that kind of thing. And so when I'm asleep, I don't remember those things. But when you start waking up, these things start spontaneously coming back, or you might go to workshops. But then there's the bloodlines, which is really important. That I think in the Western world, we're taught to be individuals. I've got my coach, I've got my personal trainer, but we're connected to this huge bloodline. And I think in some countries, those bloodlines are really you can feel them on the surface. When I go to Slovenia or visit these families, that you can see their ancestors on the walls, but in the West, we kind of just got, I know my grandparents, but not beyond that. I don't know what happened to them. So those lines do affect us, and they're very important to work with, actually. Yeah. So collective fear, shifting the fear. But there's also this collective guilt and this collective anger that's going on. And the fear is the transmitter, but the guilt and the anger are generating this whole collective problem at the moment. And in the Western world, we're too busy paying the mortgage and dropping the kids off at school to even think about that. So most people are unaware of it. It's all happening under the surface. But starseeds who are more conscious, more aware, are the kind of pressure valves for the collective, and they're feeling it. So they're feeling it, but they're also the alchemists, and they know how to transform it when they start waking up. It's important to know how to transform energies and release energies. Not just be aware, oh, I'm feeling anxiety. Well, what do we do with it? Transform it. Don't just leave it in your body. It's a
Yeah.
skill we learn to, most of us have to learn. Otherwise we get swamped by energies, our mother's anxiety or our father's anger or whatever it is. We have to learn to purge. We have to learn to dissolve the cords and create space between us and people who are really resonating at a very low frequency, but still retain empathy. I mean, I do actually read the newspapers almost daily just to check in what's happening in the collective. Not that I'm buying in with those stories, but I just want to see what other stories being pumped out there.
Yeah, I
So,
peek at it too. And
yeah,
it's interesting to see how it definitely brings the vibe down. And as a journalist, just to myself, seeing the way that today's media uses certain words that are just, they incite fear.
yeah, buy newspapers. I suppose
Yeah.
people, don't they say blood sells in the media newspaper business, something like that, isn't it? I know in England they say blood
Blood,
sells.
if it bleeds, it leads. Yes. If it bleeds, it leads. So,
Yeah,
okay. All right. So, we are, immaculate with our vibration. That's what you're saying, is that we can be immaculate with our vibration.
yeah,
And as, students of this in this world of metaphysics and working on ourself, connecting with our higher self for the information, I think that's where people are realizing these are past lives. When they go within, they're like, wow, that's a past life, or it's the ancestral bloodline. That's the importance of going within. And so, as we do this, you love to tell people, not tell people, but share this method to anchor in with the new earth, because it seems like crazy that we can be here in 5D, envisioning 5D, envisioning new earth, but yet outside it's crazy. So again, this
yeah,
is the immaculate responsibility for our vibration. So when
yeah.
you're talking about embracing the new 5D miracle flow ethic, that's really what we're talking about here. So and anchoring into 5D, talk a little bit more about this and what we can do.
Well, it's good to know. I think, well, first of all, we're straddling two timelines. Well, a lot of people are straddling two timelines. Increasingly, starseeds are getting off the old one and are stepping on the new one, which is the new Earth timeline. And anyone on a 3D timeline would not understand that timeline at all, because the new Earth timeline or the 5D timeline is essentially the energy is coming from the future, and we're tuning into what the future is telling us. And it's almost like the energy is resonating from the future. Now, someone embedded in 3D would go, well, that doesn't make sense because it hasn't happened yet. The past has happened, and I'm informed by the past. But
Mhm.
increasingly, we're finding that being informed by the past really doesn't work in any shape or form. I mean, yes, we can learn from the past, but to be informed by it. So, an example on a very personal level would be my parents tried to impart their values onto me. This is what they learned from their parents and blah, blah, blah. And it didn't work. I mean, the flow ethic is the opposite of the old work ethic, which is the old Protestant work ethic, which in America, and America is the capital of it, puritanical, Calvinistic work ethic. So I thought Britain was really bad. But when I come to America, it's like, you guys don't rest. It's like constant movement and constant work and hardly any holidays. And we've got to keep going. We've got to produce. And it's like, it seems
Mhm.
almost sacrilegious to rest or do
It
nothing.
and when people leave the matrix, that matrix, and start their own business, we hear this a lot. I work and hear it a lot. I had it myself. There's a lot of guilt about taking time to go exercise or building that into your day, because there's belief systems that if you're not doing something, you're not making money, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
a whole shift as well. You're right. Yeah, that's deep. Many BS belief systems there.
Well, so my take on the old work ethic is something like this, and see if it resonates with people. It's like it's a person's duty to achieve success and increase his or her assets and material wealth through discipline, hard work, effort, thrift, frugality, Possessing money is the first law, increasing money the second. Money generates money, whereas lack generates lack. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. We just have to follow the formula of hard work as shown by those who've gone before us, whether parents or mentors or peers. We have to deserve and earn it. We have to deserve and earn happiness, and we have to deserve and earn material success. We have to sacrifice. We have to suffer for that happiness and that success. And happiness and success, material success, are problems to be solved. The universe doesn't just give it. This is the old ethic, right? Just doesn't deliver it. You've got to go out and get it. So we must make them happen. You know, in America, it's like no one's going to give it to you. Get out and make it happen. You know, the pie is only so big. Our happiness and material success, therefore, as we grab it, we take away from others. So there is that guilt thing that, yeah, I've got it all, but they're left without, that kind of idea. The devil makes work for idle hands. Time is money, and we spend our time. This is the whole puritanical ethic. And I'll give you a couple of stories that I had recently, which was, well, actually, one is somebody I've known for a long time. She comes from Northern Italy. Now, Northern Italy is very different from Southern Italy. Northern Italy is part of they've got the work ethic there. So Northern Europe is very much work ethic, Protestant Northern Europe. Southern Europe is much more Catholic. It's a very different energy. She used to say to me, and I've known her now for I've known her for about 20 years. She still says it, but she says it a little bit more jokingly. But she says, have I produced enough today? That was a question. And that question was a daily torment. And I used to sit and listen once a week to the daily torment. And you see that the idea of producing is like, if you're an employee in a big corporation, you have to look busy. You have to be paper shuffling. It doesn't matter if you've got nothing worthwhile to do. Look busy. Do something.
That's probably why they don't want you to work at home, because they can't see you working.
Yeah. All they can do is look at the results. Look at, are you being effective? Are you being efficient?
Right.
Not how much,
are you getting your project done, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when I became
when
I became a director of this company, Alternatives, presenting spiritual authors, I did two things there, which I think was, it sounds very simple, but really it was to counter this old nonsense that even was a little bit happening in that organization. The first one was we had to have tea twice a day, morning once, afternoon once. And in that time, we checked in how we're doing emotionally, how we're feeling. And if there are any issues that are going on, they would come to the surface. But also in that time, it was a creative time to produce what would we love to create. Mm-hmm. So that was that time. And the other thing I did was say, if we don't feel joyful about it, let's not put it on. It doesn't matter if they're a celebrity. It doesn't matter if they get a big audience. If we don't like them, if we think they're crass, and we have had one or two, I do remember one or two, we don't have them back. That changed the whole vibe of the organization, you know, because excuse me, I got a cough I got a thingy in my throat. Let me
good old frog. Yes.
Excuse me. I'm going to
take a sip. Well, it's beautiful because this is what is creating the change, and this is the newness. There's new work, new collaboration coming, and it's all part of this.
Well, one thing I found in like coaching clients is that the 3D matrix does not like starseeds, and the corporate world really
don't like the 3D matrix.
No, and they're getting ejected. I've got a few clients that are being kicked out.
Yeah.
And so it causes a bit of anxiety, but basically, energetically, they're not aligned with big corporations. They can do it for a while, but small corporation or working for themselves is much better, or freelancing is much better. So I tell you a conversation I had with someone. The mother was a starseed and the son not. And she said, will you have a chat with my son? Well, I thought, oh, well, okay. Oh my God, that conversation was so challenging. It was all about the past. It was all about confusion. It was all about chasing success with no idea what that was. It was all about money. He had no clear formula for success. And his idea about making it work just was not working. his idea was, I just need to push harder and faster and meaner and keener. I'm like, guy, $300,000 has gone down the pan, and he wants to borrow another $300,000 to make it work. And I'm like, but he was so certain in his uncertainty, this is not working. And I said to him, do you believe it's a dog eat dog world? And he said, yes, of course it's a dog eat dog world. And he had no sense of joy and passion. It was all about money. And serving the world did not compute. Actually, I'm just going to get a quick drink. Actually, sorry. Can you hold on a sec?
Yes, go for it. And I just want to say that, oh my goodness, good riddance on that old paradigm falling away, because anyone who watches this show and hangs out in this arena certainly knows that the driving force is our passion and our joy. And when we go and live it and express it, we are provided for, we are inspired. And so really what we're learning is that this new matrix is exactly the opposite of everything that we've been taught. So it's beautiful. Enjoy the change.
Wow.
So Steve, as we were saying, it's like, thank God that this old paradigm is going away. It is shifting. The new rules, as you're almost here to say, is fueled by passion and the joy. And when we live in those, in that vibration, we literally are on new earth and creating and provided for and inspired. So, okay, go ahead. You were sharing about that drive.
Yeah. Well, so the shift between the old work ethic and the new one is quite a leap for some people. So if they've been working in the old ethic for a long time, actually changing the mindset, even people in the spiritual zone, I found, who are doing all the spiritual practice, may still be running on this old mindset.
Yes.
And so they have to shift.
Valuing themselves.
Yeah, and they have to shift their mindset from, it's almost like they make themselves their own CEO of their own career or their own company or whatever it is. They have to stop having a mindset of I'm a cog in a machine here, and the CEO has got all the answers, and I just have to pay people. It's also chasing money. And I understand that ethic is so embedded in chasing money. In America, I mean, chasing money is what happened in England as well. It's what people do, chase money. But once the chase stops, and you might think, well, if I stop chasing money, that means I won't get it. I mean, isn't that? But I found, so my family was pretty embedded in scarcity consciousness, I would say. I grew up in it. So I got a PhD in scarcity consciousness. They were working class. They were embedded in the work ethic. They were the message I got from my father was get a proper job, which means be normal, don't be weird. And by the way, being weird for a lot of starseeds is the perfect thing. Like we found, be weird. And when I tell people that, they feel shocked. Your weirdness is your brilliance, actually. I spent 20 years trying to work out what is a proper job, how can I be normal? And, it just was painful. When I stopped when I stopped all that efforting and I allowed my weirdness to come out, actually my weirdness, my children still think I'm weird, by the way, and my grandchildren probably a little bit now, they're getting older. But that weirdness actually is what works in this day and age, because in my father's day and age, being weird was a sure thing to get yourself fired. But in this day and age, being weird means you can create your own business or do your own thing. And people go, wow, I really like what you're doing. You're unique. You've found your little niche, and so trying to be all things, trying to be a generalist. And so there's a lot of coaches and healers out there who are too general. They're not really embracing their weirdness enough, because if they embrace their weirdness, they know exactly what they're meant to be doing. So rather than, there's millions of Reiki healers and millions of coaches, which are very general. But once you know what is my particular brand of weirdness, off you go, So following my weirdness, it was a shift in can I be weird? Do I have permission to be weird? Who's going to give me permission to be weird? My mother and father have gone now, but they would never give me permission. They'd be horrified about what I'm doing still, probably. My grandparents would not understand this. Our ancestral line, can actually object as well to us being too weird. So that energetically they can object. So we have to negotiate in meditation with them. And I've done that a few times. So just imagine, I'm just for your listeners, that you just imagine calling the mother line and saying, I want to embrace my weirdness. What do you say about that? And have conversations with whoever shows up. And then mostly the ancestors do not completely appreciate the reality we're in. So what happens with the ancestral lines is they may block us if they feel we're going to humiliate the family, or we're going to do something that's going to cause harm to the family. And so we have to actually show them the reality and say, look, this is the reality. I mean, I'm not in Victorian England. And look, there's internet and this and that, and it's okay to be weird. So I've had lots of these sessions with clients around negotiating with ancestors. That's one thing. We have to negotiate with our own ego and our ancestral lines, and there might be other lifetimes that say, well, when you shone your light so brightly before and you stood up on your soapbox and pronounced the kingdom of heaven or whatever it was, don't you remember what happened? You got hit. And so so there's these three aspects. One of the key thoughts I want to leave people with is, even though it's not been safe for thousands of years on the planet to be yourself, now it is. And most people are like, are you sure? And I say, well, look, if the men in black were going to knock on our door, they'd have got you and me probably first, but they're not really interested in us. They're kind of leaving us alone. They're like, there's too many people being themselves and the world is shifting. And actually the world wants people to be creative. I saw a very, you could say 3D documentary on Netflix about Instagram. And it was really interesting because they followed 4 people on Instagram that had millions of followers, and all of them were completely weird in their own way. And that some of their weirdness I didn't really agree with because it's very gross, I thought. But hey, so even at a 3D level, it's working. So follow your weirdness. Don't chase the money. Allow your weirdness to attract it, and there is a gap from like being an employee to running your own business, for example, or doing your own freelancing. But you'll find that the more people know exactly what you're offering and really love what you're doing, I'm finding that not having a proper job is so rewarding financially. But it took me a long time to get, because you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable all of the time. And eventually that uncomfortability can become exciting. So it's like, forget the 9-to-5 job. My grandfather got a gold watch for 40 years service. I mean, forget all that. We're not in that world anymore.
No.
That's no security there. And I went into banking because my grandmother said, get a secure job. But really, the banking world now, they're being laid off in London, so there's none of that. I'm more secure now being in my flowing out there zone than I ever was, really. And that's much more fun. So let me just tell you what what I think the new work ethic is. And when we learn what's really important, we learn to ditch the dreams and values and judgments of others. That's important because we're learning that doesn't work. When we stop chasing money, then we learn that money's fuel for the journey and not the object of the journey. Then things shift. We have to learn the power of cooperation. I mean, this is a cooperation, right? Me coming on your show, which I'm very grateful for. And there is healthy competition that can help us excel in what we choose to do. But healthy competition does not involve envy or jealousy. It involves appreciation and inspiration. Because if someone's excelling in their field, they can become a great inspiration for us. Like when I was at Alternatives, I heard hundreds of authors and, all in this kind of field. And they never went, oh, well, there's so many. And I've heard people say this. There's so many people doing it already. How can I even do it? But even though there are thousands of people doing what I'm doing across the planet, I'm doing it in my way. You're doing it in your way. And so we can learn from others. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. I've listened to people like Wayne Dyer. I sat in a Wayne Dyer talk 20 years ago, and I was so moved by his presentation. I thought that guy is so inspiring. And he helped me understand something about the power of presentation. So I've learned a lot from a lot of people. So allow them to teach us, really. But the miracle flow ethic says something like this. It says something like, we live in a magical universe where we create our reality from the inside out. Everything is energy, and energy is directed by consciousness. Our focus determines our reality. Our stories, beliefs, habitual thinking determines our reality. Our life scripts determine our reality. The strength of our connection to spirit determines our reality. Our ability to raise and maintain a high vibration, it determines our reality. With this consciousness, we determine the rules we live by. There will always be rules, but we must agree to them and say, they're my rules, I agree to them. Because there's a lot of crazy rules in society that we can agree to, of course. There are no limits or conditions imposed by the universe on our happiness or on our success, other than we follow our heart and the still voice of spirit within. There are no limits or conditions. Society puts plenty of limits and conditions, and even spiritual teachers can put limits and conditions, I have to say. So one thing I would say is, don't let anything I say put any kind of limit on you. Because I remember I had a limit with a spiritual teacher that when this person is so amazing and wonderful that I can never be more than them or go beyond them. And so I've noticed in a lot of spiritual teaching zones that students do not feel they can go beyond the teacher or beyond the author or beyond the presenter. But you have full permission to go beyond anything I say. And many of you will, and fantastic. When I'm gone, you should be sailing out there. Even when I'm here, you should be going well past me. And I've noticed some teachers struggle with that. I remember a story of this ashram where this enlightened teacher was talking, and suddenly one of the guys woke up and was like suddenly awake. And you can guess what happened to him. They threw him out. There's only room for one guru in this ashram. Out you go, mate. So that can happen, so there can be limits, or you get ejected. You can't go beyond the teacher. With this consciousness, our values, strengths, gifts, dreams determine and define our happiness and success. It's important that we do define what happiness and success is for ourselves, really, not let others define, not let parents define it. That's the worst thing, With this consciousness, our time on earth becomes precious, because time is the one resource that's actually finite in our life, not in our soul's journey, but in this lifetime. We may have 100 years, we may have 150 years. I don't want to put a limit on anyone, but whatever that is, because I think our lifespan can change. We may not just live to 100. We may live more than that, but it's finite. Unless you've learned the art of, thrice great Hermes, that he could make himself immortal for 200,000 years. But most of us haven't learned that secret yet. So we do have a finite time. So we can choose to use our time well, rather than selling our time, which is the old thing. I've got to sell my time to get by, and I resent selling my time, and I don't like selling my time, and I'm not even liking what I'm doing, but as long as it pays me, I'll do it. That mindset goes, really, it shifts. And of course, there's a gap, between the old and the new. It's such a huge gap in some ways that the bridge between the two is really, you could say, a bridge of faith and courage. Because faith, for a while, we have a foot in both worlds. We have a foot in, well, I've got a day job, but at the weekend I go to the workshop. So there's that kind of thing. But eventually we might step more into the 5D will call us. So I remember it called me. I had a foot in both worlds in the the late 90s, actually. So I was doing all the spiritual work in the 90s. Only my job was a 3D job. And then eventually that went, and I had to follow my heart and follow the journey and have faith and listen to guidance and follow my intuition. It was a powerful journey of, my intuition is guiding me on this journey. Actually, there are beings interested in my journey that can help me, my higher self and other beings. That journey is an escape from our old familiarity zone, the old zone of chasing money and not expressing our feelings and working so hard and, not having a proper holiday, not really resting, shuffling paper, all of that. We're out of that zone. So actually at the beginning, I remember when I was out of that zone, and I remember sitting in a cafe and I thought, this is an amazing luxury. I'm working in a cafe and but basically my work was doing nothing for a while, because I had to just create the space to think and to create and to download. And that was the initial, is it okay to create the space? But actually, if we don't create the space to listen to our intuition, to listen to whatever spirit's saying, nothing happens. So I had to create the space. And then all this creativity started coming. And so For example, if someone's paper shuffling and busy, there's zero creativity. It's all doing and no opening to any creative impulse, nothing new's coming in. We have to stop that to allow the creative journey. And we have to allow the energies of joy and play and fun into the zone, because making work or the journey playful and fun is really a great shift, actually. So I did a workshop at the weekend called Starseed Entrepreneur in London, and we had about 30 people in the room. And one of the things I did was I played the money game. And the money game, we can talk about money till, we're blue in the face. We can talk about our beliefs and our stories. But what I do is I ask people to bring money, and they're going to play a game where they can lose it or not. So the first game is the shark game, which is really a game of grabbing and taking and fighting and competing. It's high energy and people are grabbing. And so basically your money's there, but people can grab it. You can grab others. It's a great free for all. It's a lot of fun. And there are rules, but people break the rules because they always break the rules, even in our 3D matrix of people breaking the rules. And so then there's the learning afterwards. People come around. What have you learned? What have you gained? How were you? And so there's that process. And then the second game is the dolphin game, which is really a game of giving and receiving. And there are rules to that game, but it's really, and some people find it easier doing the shark game and incredibly difficult doing the giving and receiving game. So learning to give and receive. And one thing I encouraged people to do was, there was no talking in the second game. You can't talk in the dolphin game. You can only seduce or motion or play or motion, would you like to give me some money? You can't take their money. And a lot of people, you could say it's like flirting or something. I took part in the game. I had so much fun because I know it's a game and I know it's fine. And I know, money is just energy. But when people don't realize that, and they're looking at how much money have I got, it just creates a heaviness in the game for them. They can't play, they can't flow, and they can't really play that game very successfully. So things like having fun. I mean, I like the energy of the tricks that have come through. It's just very playful, and there are a lot of entrepreneurs that have that energy. So I had a client actually recently, and she's working at a very, very high level of money. I mean, you're talking millions of euros and sterling. And she said, basically, I have all these potential deals, but I'm not actually making a deal, and if I get a deal, the commission is huge, but I'm not making a deal. And we realized that she had all kinds of energetic blocks to actually make it. She had all the connections, but she was resisting making the deal for all kinds of reasons. We released those locks and blocks. Then she messaged me 10 days later. I made a deal. I don't know, it's $150 million euros or something. And I've made €500,000. Thank you very much. So as energy, so people might say, well, it's all very, very nice, but I mean, I'm dealing with entrepreneurs. I'm dealing with people who are working with money. I'm working in my own life with money. I'm not chasing money anymore. In fact, I deliberately don't chase money. And I find that rather than repelling money, money tends to flow in a way I've not experienced before this last 3 years, I'd say. The last 3 years, I've experienced money flowing in a very different way than before. So, and I mean, there's more I could say about money if you're interested, or your listeners are interested, but because money is a huge subject around this, because it's so core to the old 3D matrix. And in America, it's so core that holds that whole thing together, isn't it? That control around, there's only so much, you've got to chase it and get out there at 6 a.m, pound the gym, and then get to work, and then come home and, feel stressed, but actually, hopefully have a chat with the wife and sit down and watch TV and have a glass of wine. And, stressful even talking about it, really, isn't it?
Do it all over again tomorrow if you have enough to make it. Yeah. I love those money games. Money games are really powerful. All right. And I love that as we create in this way, that it's no longer chasing money. And so it's shifting from doing things because we're going to be paid money for it, to shifting it because it feels right. I know that seems like a stretch, and you mentioned the word gap, and that's the gap. The gap is, how do you do that? But we do just do it by taking a step and beginning. So for those who wish to start and go forward, give them some advice on actually just having that faith and courage, because it's true
Well,
trust and passion too.
I think there's basically two approaches to the problem of a gap.
Yes.
So imagine if you're walking through the forest and then the forest clears and you come to the edge of a cliff and there's a great chasm. And on the other side is where you want to go, but there's a chasm there. There's a couple of ways of dealing with it. And most people do it there's two ways of dealing with that in life. We've come, let's say someone's in the corporate world, I can't do this anymore, or someone's in some other situation, I can't do this anymore. What do I do? The two approaches: one, a leap of faith, where I'm meditating and I get the impression, okay, it's the right time, I'm going to leap off into the void and the universe will catch me. As long as the timing's right, it's a bumpier ride that way, but the universe can catch you. It's what I did in the 90s. When I left, I resigned not knowing where I'm going. Just I had the feeling, I asked the universe and they gave me the sign and I left. So, and that was an interesting 18-month journey, a bit bumpy. I learned a lot, but then after 18 months, I was in exactly the right time, the right position to step into that directorship role. It was almost one of those things, the universe knew the timing and I had to wait and it said, go. And I went and it worked out perfectly. But the other way people can do it is having a more strategic planned exit. And some people probably need that for their own ego sanity, So you can, for example, go part-time or plan your exit from the corporate world in a much more measured way. And I've had one or two people that coaching clients have done that. They've planned it. They've planned their exit in a very clever way. They've got some kind of payment and they've gone, but it's very scary. And I think the extra bit I understand in America, which doesn't really happen in Europe, is medical insurance is an extra bolt on the whole process,
That's the number one reason people tell me they don't leave their corporate job.
Exactly. Well, let me say that of course, when I was working in the bank, I had a very safe job, was earning a lot of money. Then I worked in local government. I had a management job. I was earning a lot of money, enough. I'm not saying millions, but it was okay. To leave it was like my ego was saying, "Why would you leave this? The job is safe, it's secure.
Yeah.
Why? It's the same conversation. I mean, I didn't have medical insurance to worry about, but I still had a mortgage and things like that. So whatever you've got going, and actually." What I'm finding is if you're working in a stressful environment, a lot of your money will eventually get circled into managing your stress. You have to go for the massages. You have to do the things to keep the stress. I had to go on the retreats just to deal with my stress,
Mm-hmm.
But when I left that, I found there's a huge weight off me, my health in the last 20 years has been reasonably pretty amazing, I would say. I'm 62 now and I'm, still go around running around the park in the mornings and I do a little bit of martial arts training, by myself and stuff like that. I'm pretty fit. And I know people much younger than me. I remember I was going with someone who was quite a lot younger than me, walking up this building, up flights of stairs. And she said, I can't do anymore. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. We'll catch the lift. So I've got a lot of energy. And I think people who are following their passion, having a sense of play and fun tend to have more vitality anyway. So I don't really, I mean, I might go and I had a checkup when I was 50, and if I go to a new doctor's, they insist you have a checkup, but apart from that, I don't really see them. So in terms of health, in terms of security, it's much better to follow your heart and follow out there. And even if you hit some challenges, it's all right. On the journey, I've hit some major challenges, after leaving alternatives. So after I was there for 13 years and I got the message, okay, leave that now. And I didn't want to leave that because I loved it. So I thought, well, why should I leave it? And the intuition was, no, you got to leave. And I fought with that intuition, which is not a good idea because I think, no, I've been here and I love this place. Why should I leave? And then, so I had a little bit of crisis, but then I left and then money ran out. I was writing the book but I found my way. I was thinking, will I have enough money? I always had enough money. It always climbed in. I mean, there were some weeks were a bit tighter than others, but it was all right. And actually the journey became exciting. It's like every week is different. If you're doing a 9 to 5, every week is pretty much the same. And even I've met some entrepreneurs who run businesses, their heart's not really in it. Every week's the same, same old dramas, same old. And for me, every week is pretty different. I'm heading off to Glastonbury to run a retreat in a couple of weeks. I'm heading to America in May. I'm getting to New Jersey, and then Portland, Oregon, and then in August I'm going to Mount Shasta. Heading to Poland. I'm heading to Egypt at the end of the year, and so on. So um, yeah, it's kind of an interesting journey, and the great thing about it is I kind of get to make it up as I go along. I kind of think, well, where would I like to go and hang out? What would be a really nice thing to do? And that was something I learned at Alternatives. Who would we like to attract? Who would we, what events would we like to put on? So I've kind of built on that now. What would I like to do? And that's a muscle I've had to build over time, because at the beginning it's a bit like, can I do this? But eventually the muscle gets built, the confidence, you could say, and confidence comes in doing. It's not really a fixed thing we inject in ourselves, but the more we do it, the more we face our challenges, the more we become more resourceful and find out I'm a resourceful being. And our sense of resourcefulness doesn't just come from this lifetime, it comes from other lifetimes. So I had a healer in the early 90s when I was starting out on the journey say to me, she got a pendulum out and she did a swinging thing, and she went, oh yeah, you were a high priestess in Atlantis, you were so and so in Egypt. And I listened to that thinking, well, if that's all true, I've got huge resources. And that's true for everyone, I think. We've got these resources in us, but we just don't know what they are. And this idea of inner potential, if you're doing a 9 to 5 job, if you're stuck in a kind of familiarity zone and the old work ethic, then your inner potential is unrealized. We don't know. You could be in a factory making widgets or paper shuffling, and you could be a brilliant poet, a brilliant dancer, a brilliant writer, a brilliant coach, a brilliant speaker, and you'll never know, actually. So that's the thing about the journey. It forces us to dig deep and find what's really in us that wants to come out. So that's another part of the shift. And most people have got no awareness of their true gifts until they get on the path. When you were a journalist, I bet you didn't know you could do what you're doing now. It's all like, wow, I can do this, and I can create this business and do this kind of stuff and sell that kind of stuff and make this up. It's an ongoing journey.
It's an ongoing journey. And, in my own life, it was something where since I was a little girl, I wanted to be that journalist. And when I got into that world, I was, wow, not enough time to even eat lunch during the day. And then you have to put on makeup and go in front of a camera.
Yeah.
And it was really looking at other people's business and then repeating the same stories over and over. And so, in my life, and it seems like in this journey for everyone, as we make our way to the great new work ahead, the great new service work for all of us following our joy and passion, we take that inventory, right? We take that inventory of our unique skills. And that does take us inward in a new way. And it does take us through the Akashic records into past lives that our higher self shows us of these skills and these talents. And then that's where it comes into just stepping and doing things that we love. We just begin doing what we love. And as you said, because you've created that space and carved out that time, the inspiration comes, your creativity came to you. It's like
Yeah.
releasing that baggage and it comes. So this is so promising and so hopeful. And I hope that everyone is feeling this. I'm getting goosebumps as we can see the new earth. We can see the new world, the new collaboration out there. You mentioned competition. And I just don't see that anymore. I actually have transcended because being in the journalist world, that was embedded in us,
Yeah.
competition, getting the scoop, right?
Yeah.
And I've actually seen how we can all work together and actually make a greater, stronger platform by coming together and working in new ways. And the technology today is here to support us. And I just find that so beautiful and promising. So again, another reason why we always say to keep your vision, hold your vision of new earth, create that vision and go for it. So I am really excited here. I think it's beautiful. I think it's really great. So thank you for sharing on your new 5D Miracle Flow ethic. Um,
Pleasure.
there is a way that people can work with you. This is really wonderful because you are a wonderful teacher and a wonderful coach. I'm going to share my screen here because we're about ready to go into an after party on Zoom with you. And the after party on Zoom, you can go get a single ticket into this, or you can come along and purchase one of Steve's special offer options. Steve has some courses that he's done that take you deeper into what we've been talking about today. This is actually 5D light technology. So, Steve, share with us a little bit about your courses in this offer.
Hi, Lauren. You cut out slightly there.
Oh, did I cut out? All right. I
Yeah,
was
you cut
wondering
out.
if you cut out. Thank you for this Mercury retrograde moment. All right. Well, Steve, I don't know if you heard me, but I would like you to share about the courses that you've created. These actually take people deeper into everything that we've been talking about. And so this is a beautiful option because you also have a live upcoming webinar that will be included with the purchase of any of these items on your special offer. So this is called 5D light technology.
Yeah. So yeah, so there's a couple of courses there. One is there's one is 5D light medicine technology, and that one it's got 4 levels. One is clearing and upgrading the etheric body, and then clearing and upgrading the emotional body, and then clearing and upgrading the mental body. And when that's all done, there's an embracing of the higher self. So that's 4 sessions on that one. And the stepping into 5D light mastery has got 7 levels. It's got foundation, and then there's healing the ego, clearing timelines, expanding your divine light, connecting with unseen friends, becoming the dreamer, and high frequency living. So they're the 2 courses: 5D light medicine technology and 5D light mastery. Yeah.
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 Okay.
And yeah. So I know there's some extra bits being bolted on to that. Lauren, do you want to mention those?
Yes, there's an extra bit being bolted on to that. And so Steve has an upcoming event on April 9th, and that will be included. That's available for purchase on its own as well, but we are including it with any of these items on Steve's special offer. So it's really a great savings because it's like an extra bonus program that is included for the price of just one of those. So
Yeah.
those are really good. Thank you so much for that. We are going to be with Steve in our after party, and our after party is a way for us to just connect with you, each of you who wish to share and connect with like-hearted beings. We have a membership available, but we have single tickets as well, and you can just pop in and say hey to Steve. You can ask, you can laugh, and you can share. This is where we come together and support one another and know that we are safe in this venture. You know, we may have lives that we remember being killed for speaking our truth, but as you said, Steve, we are safe now. And this is really where we share those experiences with one another. So you can get Steve's special offer because, again, if you purchase any of his special offer items, you'll get a ticket into today's Zoom after party as well. And it's fun. So we invite everyone to join us. So thank you for that, Steve.
Pleasure.
Quick link to your special offer is bit.ly/QCSteve. Check that out. And you can also get his special offer on this webpage that you're viewing or any of the links in the description box. Steve, thank you so much. This is beautiful. Again, we are feeling empowered and inspired. What we began in this show with a little bit of fear from the collective, we are totally shifting it. And I think that's what we do in this time of this shift in our mastery of our vibration is to transmute any fear that comes up. And you mentioned timelines. Remember, when we create timelines, we do so by choosing something new, and it's choosing love over fear. And so we're in it now, aren't we? Where we certainly have that old style and the old way that we can continue to do, or we can simply open our hearts to love and choose the new and literally know that we're changing the timeline. So as we say goodbye today, Steve, thank you for wrapping up our session in something that allows us to truly embrace this new miracle flow 5D ethic.
Thank you, Lauren.
Beautiful. All right. That is Steve. He's giving us a silent transmission right now. I think we've said it all then. This feels complete. We invite everyone to listen to this again and be inspired. This is new earth that we're creating, and we thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. Please join us on QCTV in the after party on Zoom. We're going to stay here on this link as we dance our way to the cosmic heart. Enjoy.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks, Steve.
Had a strange, odd, I don't know why the hell that came. What that was, maybe it's what we were talking about with the collective. I don't know. Anyway.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. Access all quantum conversations, special offers from our guests, and online healing retreats by visiting acoustichealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. We leave you now with music from the universe. Music literally created by the universe, as musical notes were assigned to mathematical equations. The result is this beautiful music, available at acoustichealth.com. Namaste.